began module 2 as we began to look into the evolution of money, the evolution of money. So last week we were able to establish the fact that money is not the paper you have in your purse or in your pocket. Money is not your ATM card. Money is not your checkbook. What many of us call money is nothing but just currency. And then we began to look at the evolution of money. How did we arrive at a place where you now call that paper money? So we looked at the first level of evolution. We looked at the hunter-gatherer caveman era, and I explained to us that when the present day evolution of human civilization began, people were at the level where they were hunters, gatherers, cavemen, and they were running after what was on the ground. What was on the ground. But at that point, all they needed was energy and skill. Energy to hunt, the skill to hunt. And that energy and skill was the currency with which they transacted and the currency with which they survived. But then we move to the next level of evolution, like we said last week Sunday. Emulation and observation is a form of education. So by emulating people, you are able to learn. By observing things, you are able to learn. So by observation, they realized that the ground upon which they were walking had the ability to produce. And then that was what brought forth, by the inspiration of the Creator, the revival of the understanding of the power of the land and farming. And then we got into what we call the farming or the agrarian era, And we said that one of the things that happened as a result of the agrarian era is that land now became very, very important. So I told you about royal estate, how people began to own land, and the bigger the land you have, the bigger your farm, the bigger your plantation, the richer you were. But that brought in some different realities. Number one, it brought an enhanced class system. People began to look at themselves as being superior to other people as a result of the fact that they had bigger farms and bigger plantation. Another thing it did was to bring a renewed dimension to polygamy. So many of us grew up in villages and in families where our grandfathers and those that came before us were farmers, and they had 5 wives, 8 wives, 30 children. Now, that was not as a result of love. It was an economic theory. And that's why I wonder if people are still operating in that today. Then we also saw that it brings the revival of the slave trade, where people now realize that, look, if I have to bring 4 children within my own territory, then I have to marry the wife, feed the wife, impregnate the wife, she gives birth to a child, I train the child before the child can be useful for me on the farm. That became a problem. So that led into the slave trade that became a major problem. And then the currency then began to come into force. That's when we had what we call the trade by barter. Now, don't forget, energy to hunt and skill to hunt now needed to be upgraded to energy to farm and skill to farm. So don't lose sight of those two words, energy and skill, because at this point there was no currency, and this was what they needed to be able to continue to excel. So trade by barter now became the economic system that they began to explore. So let's continue from there. So trade by barter is an economic system that involves an exchange. Somebody say exchange. I can't hear you say it loud. Exchange. That is using what you have to get what you want. So when we say trade by barter, we are saying use what you have to get what you want. Use what you have to get what you want. So in the marketplace of life, nobody comes in empty. You don't come in empty. When you come into the marketplace, you come with something in order to be able to get something. But the challenge we have in our world today is people think they can just get something for nothing. No, it does not work like that. You can't get something for nothing. You come into the marketplace with something. So that system of exchange that exists then and still exists today does not permit you to come with nothing to offer. So money to them was whatever you have to exchange for what you need. That's what money was to them. They began to look into what can I exchange for what I need. That's all. They were not thinking of paper. They were not thinking of currency. They were thinking, what can I exchange for what I need? So the question is, if that is a form of currency and a trading transactional tool for that time, why are you then looking for paper currency when you can use what you have to get what you want? So think about it. You can use what you have to get what you want, so why are you looking for money? People understand using what you have to get what you want in the negative, but they don't understand it in positive. Hey, use what you have to get what you want. Use what you have to get what. It doesn't have to be negative. You can use the experience that you have to get the resources that you want. You can use whatever material that you have right now to get whatever service that you need. People know how to use their body to get money. Is it not using what you have to get what you want? But they are doing that in the negative. People know how to use fear to do things. So why are you not learning that using what you have to get what you want is not a negative thing and should not only be seen from the negative dimension? So guess what? Everyone is rich. Everyone is rich. I've always told you, how many kidneys do you have? You have 2 kidneys. How many kidneys do you need? You have 1. So what's the second kidney doing there? So many of you, you have 2 kidneys now. You are looking at me now, 2 kidneys. I say you are poor. And 1 kidney will probably bring you, maybe, I don't know how much they sell kidney. That's not my business. But let's assume $100,000. Assumption. So that means you have $100,000 sitting there inside you, and you are looking for $50,000 to pay for your shop. So think about it. That's how you have gifts, you have talents, you have potentials on the inside of you. Your gold is tied to your gift. Your treasure is tied to your talent. Your profit is tied to your potential. So on the inside of you, there is something you have that you can exchange for what you need. Do you know that when you go to work, you say, I'm working, and they pay you salary. Now, when you go to that work, what do you give them? You give them your time. You give them your energy. You give them your knowledge. You give them your skill. What do they give you at the end of the month? They pay you for those things that you've given to them. So you are using what you have to get what you want. And that's why we need to have that understanding, because a lot of people have put a barrier between them and their miracle. And I've taught you in this house before, I've said it over and over again, what you need is what you need. It's a principle. What you need is what you need. If you need a car, stop praying for money to get a car. Ask for the car. If you need a house, stop praying for money to get a house. Ask for the house. If you need a job, you don't pray for money to get a job. So why are you praying for money to get a car? If you need a job, do you pray for money to get a job? You say, oh Lord, I need a job. So why do you now pray for money when you need a car? If you need a job, you pray for a job. If you need a wife, do you pray for money to get a wife? If you need a husband, do you pray for money to get a husband? If you need a child, do you pray for money to get a child? So why are you praying for money to get a car? Who told you? It's because of the software that has been put on the inside of you. You now think that you need money, whereas what you have, you can use. You have tangible and intangible resources that are available for you to exchange for what you need. So I'm going to give you an homework. Like I said, when we started, there's going to be a lot of assignments. So if you don't have the manual, you need to get the manual, like I've said over and over again. So now make a list of 10 things that you need. Make a list of 10 things that you need. 10 things. And then make a list of 10 things you have that you can exchange for it. So let me help you. For instance, now, I need a job. So if you need a job, so what do you have that you can exchange for a job? I have time. What do you have that you can exchange for a job? I have experience. What do you have that you can exchange for a job? I have qualification. What do you have that you can exchange for a job? I have skill. Are you getting it now? So list what you need and sit down and begin to think. Mariando Koshepe. And the Spirit of God begin to inspire you, and you begin to realize that that thing you are looking for, you already have what it takes to get it. So all you need to do is go through this process, and it will help you. So let's move on. So when the trade by barter began to function, which is what many of us, when you go into economic classes, you study economics, they will teach you more about, trade by barter, trade by barter, trade by barter. But as at this time, when they started going into this trade by barter stuff, energy and skill has been from the beginning. And the energy and skill is still there, but people now started losing sight of energy and skill. But there was limitation. Trade by barter came with limitation. It came with some limitation. And it was this limitation in the trade by barter dimension that led to the next level of evolution that brought in what everyone now knows as currency. So what do we see? Number one, value differential. The first limitation was value differential. So what does that mean? Now, so for instance now, in trade by barter, because they were in an agrarian age, Someone probably has tomatoes, and somebody else had, corn. So one person brings tomato, the other person brings corn. And the person bringing tomato is saying, if I give you 1 dozen of tomatoes, I need a plastic of corn. And the person bringing corn says, what do you mean by that? How can you give me just 1 dozen for a plastic? I need 10 dozens of tomato for 1 plastic. I said, no, tomato is very important now. 1 dozen is enough. He said, no, my corn is very important. So the value of what everybody had was higher to them, and most of the time there was no agreement on the value of people's products. And that became a problem, because somebody believes that yam is more valuable than plantain. Somebody else believes that plantain is more valuable than beans. Somebody else believes that beans is more valuable than gari. And because of that, problem 1. Problem 2, the need differential. There was a differentials in their need. So for instance now, if you need beans and then you have yam, so you bring yam to the market and you want to exchange yam for beans. So you need beans, you have yam. But the person that has the beans does not need yam. So you say, sorry, I don't need yam. If you can give me plantain, that's what I need. Say, I don't have plantain. So you have to first of all go and use your yam to look for somebody that has plantain and needs yam. Are you getting it now? So you go through that. By the time you now get the plantain, before you now come back to the person that has beans. So because of that differentials of need, it was becoming cumbersome and complex. Number 3, the mobility limitation. There was no transportation. It was, you see, when you hear, necessity is the mother of invention. It was during this agrarian age that transportation came in. They started by walking, then they were moving carts, then they started using horses and animals, and they had horse carriages. Before you know it, they started talking about cars. Before you know it, trains. Before you know it, they started having canoe and boats. So all these transportations came as a result of how do we transport our farm produce from the farm to the different cities and the different villages. How do we transport what we have to where the product is needed? So it was that transportation and mobility limitation that brought forth the emergence of different transportation and brought forth different kinds of stuff, but at the same time, it was a major challenge. And then number 4, the storage challenge. How do I store banana for 3 years? How do I store potatoes for 1 year? How do I store tomatoes for 7 years? It was becoming a difficult problem. So as a result of all these different problems, people now started thinking. They started thinking, why? Because now they are moving to the next level of evolution. Now this next level of evolution is what brought us into the 3rd dimension that we call the industrial age or the industrial era. So in the industrial age came as a result of, I have potatoes. How do I keep these potatoes for 1 year? If I cut it and I fry it, or I roast it, then I preserve it, then it can stay longer. Tomatoes, if I squeeze it, I turn it to liquid, it becomes tomato paste, it becomes tomato puree. This orange, if I squeeze it, I can put preservative, it becomes orange juice. I can keep it for 2 years instead of the orange spoiling after 3 months. So as a result of this dimension of evolution, we got into the industrial age. Are you seeing how this thing works now? But guess what? Don't forget that during the time of famine, people were slaves on the farm. They are brought slaves and they were all working on the farm. So the energy and skill that people had during the hunting age, when the evolution moved to agrarian, some people left that realm and upgraded themselves. So they reskilled to ensure that the energy is now redirected at farming. The skill is now into farming. Now, at this next level of evolution again, they now started thinking of, okay, now this energy that we have been using to farm, we now have to redirect this energy to being educated and getting the understanding of how to function in that next level. And they now began to develop new skills. And these new skills that they began to develop was the skill that is required, because the skill they needed on the farm is not needed in the factory. And what happened at this point is the fact that many of the people that were on the farm, They now started picking the ones that were smart, the ones that were quick with their head, quick in thinking, and they gathered them together. It was at this point that education started. So schools were not set up so that you can be rich. No. Schools were set up so that those that were farming slaves can be trained on how to function in the factory. So the purpose of education was to help people to redirect their energy and to give them the skills that is required for them to continue to slave, but no more on the farm. They now slave in the factory. So when they were in the farm, they were wearing short knicker. They now brought them into the factory. They gave them overall. So you are still a slave. That's why you are called a civil servant or public. You are still a slave, still servant. But you are now a servant in a factory instead of being a servant in the field. Are you getting it now? So don't think that, oh, I go to school. No. Schools were not set up to help you. It was set up to prepare you and to equip you to function at that next level. And because of derivative, what's a derivative? A derivative is what you derive from something. So from orange, we have orange juice. Orange. So orange juice is a derivative of orange. From apple, you have apple juice. You have apple puree. So apple juice is a derivative of what? Of apples. So that derivative, that things that are derived from, is what brought us to this level. But now look at it now. Are you ready for this? Are you sure you're ready? At the first level of evolution, they were running after what was on the ground. The animals, the squirrels, the antelope that was diminishing. At the second level of education, they were functioning with the ground itself. They were farming, and the ground was producing. But guess what? At this third level, they have gone to the next dimension. They are now dealing with what is under the ground. Now, under the ground, we have crude oil. Under the ground, gold, coal, diamond, diverse minerals, and precious stone. They have always been under the ground when people were hunting, but they did not know. So what is in you that you don't know? They did not know. While they were farming and making money from the ground, gold was under the ground. Crude oil was under the ground. Many of you don't know, but when crude oil was first discovered, they called it Black Death. Black Death. They saw crude oil and said, this black thing is coming from under the ground. It's going to kill all of us. So the same crude oil that later became what? Because they did not have understanding. So they are now going after what is under the ground. So you need to go below, to go into your life. Because when God created you in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, and the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the earth and breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So you were brought forth from the dust of the earth. That's why if you can go and do this experiment. When you get home now, you want to sleep, go to the bedroom, have your bath, clean yourself, and then make your bed, white bed sheets. And then from the bathroom, go straight to the bed and sleep naked on the bed. When you wake up the next morning, you will see sand on your bed. Where did the sand come from? You are a sand. You die daily. Whether you know it or not, you die daily. So why? Because you are from the earth. So that therefore means that if you go deep into you, the same way that there was crude oil under the ground, and they were walking on the ground without knowing that there was crude oil, there was gold. In the same way, there is deposits inside you. There are potentials, there are gifts, there are dimensions inside you. If you dig deep enough, if you dig deep enough, something will come out of you that will transform your life. Listen to me. When you want to plant corn, what do? You take your finger, open the soil, put the corn there, cover it up. Few days later, it begins to grow. Few months later, you are eating corn. But if you plant corn, you can only eat it once. And after a few months, corn is gone. To eat another corn, you have to plant corn again. So the depth you go to plant a corn is different from the depth you will go to if you want to bury a dog. If you want to bury a dog, you go deeper. But the depth you go to bury a dog is different from the depth you go to bury a human being. These are levels of depth. But if you want to get water, what do? To dig a well, you go deeper. But guess what? There is even a limitation to the well. To dig a borehole, what do? You go deeper again. To get to crude oil, you go deeper. The problem with many of us is we are too shallow. We are too shallow, mentally lazy, physically lazy. You are not ready to think deep. You are not ready to spend time in meditation, in prayer, in understanding, so that God can take you deep until Toma call me. You will touch water and you will touch some depths of God. So we came into the industrial age, and at this point, number one, education came. Number two, banking came. It was at this point that they set up banks. Why? Because they have gone through all kinds of evolution. And like I was telling you earlier on, we have derived products. So different factories began to come. People started learning chemistry, learning biology. Because, I've told you in this house, if you say you are a medical doctor, so you went to school, you study medicine, somebody now give you a certificate, and so you're a medical doctor. The first medical doctor who trained him and made him a doctor. Are you seeing now that it is human being that created curriculum and created subjects and created courses and programmed you to believe in that faith? You say you are a lawyer. The first lawyer that is a lawyer, who trained that lawyer? The person that trained that lawyer, who certified that person as a trainer? Everybody, you can start your own generation. You too can begin to train people for something that does not exist, and you create it because there is a creator in you, and you're also a creator. Are you getting it now? You see, our mind have been messed up. They have put all kinds of software in us that we need to be reprogrammed so that we can be free from the manipulation of men. So things that are derived from farm produce. So from furniture, we get the wood. From juice, we get furniture from wood. We get juices from fruits. We get medicine and herbs from leaves. We get meat and chicken from animals. We get clothes and shoes from skins and hides. And in this third level of evolution, number one, the school system was set up. Number two, jobs and salary came as this is where they started having jobs. You know that when they were in the farm, they will put them on a scale. And when they put them on a scale, they will measure them. They will now put them there and say, this is Johnny. Johnny has been working in the farm of Mr. Pemberton. He has been here, he's very strong, he can work for 8 hours, this and that, and then they will now begin to say, if you want Johnny, and then they begin to wage for it. So the word salary, the root word for salary is wages. Wages is a wages. And that's the price you pay for a slave. When you are going to buy a slave, you wage it. And that's what they are calling salary. Now, the same way they are measured on a physical scale, when you go to office now, what do they call it? They call it salary scale. So you are still a slave. So you need to have that understanding that you are more than, no matter what they pay you, nobody can pay you your true worth. So if you go into any organization, I've just released a new book, How to Create Wealth as a Career Person. Go and get the book and read it. If you go into any organization, don't go there with that beggarly mentality. Please, can I beg to apply? No. Every vacancy is a cry for help. They are the one that need you. They say accountant needed. When somebody say accountant needed, it means we have problem with our accounting system. We need help. When somebody say vacancy, marketer needed, it means they have problem with marketing. They need you. So when you are going there, you are supposed to go there with solution. Not that you go there thinking that I let them just pay me. Or pay you with what money? What have you brought to the table? When you go with that mindset of being a beggar, I just want to survive, you cannot offer value. You will remain at the slavery level. And then the paper currency also became a reality at this point. The paper currency also became a reality at this point. That's when banking came into the equation. Now, listen. Due to the limitations of trade by barter, like we've said, many other means of transactions were now being explored. So they use gold, they use silver, they use all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, they now settle for paper currency. But before they got to the, paper currency level, they have used gold, they have used cowrie, they have used all kinds of stuff. And you know what happened? Are you ready for this? Are you sure you're ready? What happened was, everybody began to use gold at a point. And when they got to the level of using gold, that was when they got close to what I can consider to be divine currency. Because Genesis chapter 2, you see gold there. Revelation, you see gold there. So gold is like, getting close to divine currency. But the problem again with the gold was that gold was not malleable. What do I mean by malleable? Butter is so if you have a bowl of butter now, you can use knife to cut the butter, but you can't cut gold. So if someone has gold, a gold bar, there's no way they can pinch it like bread to say, okay, it takes more. No. So, and gold is not malleable. Gold is heavy. Gold is valuable. It can be stolen. So they say, look, you know what? Let's start using paper. And what we are going to do is everybody bring your gold. So everybody brought their gold. They now created what they call currency or promissory notes. So really, what you are calling money now is not money. It was created as a promissory note. And it was supposed to be backed up by gold. So when you bring your gold, they will now give you promissory notes. It's as if when you open a bank account and they give you a checkbook or they give you an ATM card. Now when they are giving you that checkbook and giving you that ATM card, what they are saying is, this checkbook is not money, this ATM card is not money, but whatever you have in your bank account, you can use this checkbook to access it. You can use this ATM to access it. But if you have nothing in the bank, you have nothing to access. The paper, checkbook paper is useless, your ATM card is useless. So what happened then was people brought their gold, they now gave them paper, which is where paper currency came in. Say, take this paper. Anytime you want to buy anything, give this paper to somebody. So it was just like checkbook. Give this paper to somebody. When that person now uses that paper, we will now exchange your gold from your own account into the other person's account. So even till today, there's what we call a clearing house. Every bank will still have to go back to that pot called a clearing house. So when you transact your business with your bank and you are dealing with somebody from another bank, before your money can go from your bank to that person in the other bank, it will go through a clearing house. That is why they will call you to confirm. Before we move this money, confirm that you are the one that gave that check. Confirm. So it's a clearing house. And that's what was happening. So paper is not money. Paper is not money. It's just a promissory note. So if you can access the British pounds. I think I brought... So go and get the British pounds. So this is the British pounds. And if you look at the British pounds, which is one of the highest currencies today, this is £5. So if you get the British pounds is one of the currencies that helps you to understand what I'm saying. So if you pick up the British pound, so for instance, this is £5 now. But you see this £5, when you look at the back of the pounds, you see a picture and you see the design. When you look at the front of the pounds, which is the same thing with all British currency, under the Bank of England, this is £5. So you are thinking you have £5, but no. Under the Bank of England, you will see there, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. It's on £10, it's on £20, it's on £50. Every British currency has that. So what does it mean? Even though you are holding the pounds and you think you are holding £5, you are not holding £5. You are holding ordinary paper that is a promissory note. Oh, shagalambalayakate. So paper is not money, it's a promissory note. And once you understand that, it will help you, because what we are talking about is you knowing how to understand what real money is. When you understand what real money is, it will help you to be all that you are supposed to. So the problem we have to date is the error of seeing paper currency as money, because we have lost sight of the real money as we have evolved. So what is the currency of the first level? Energy and skill. When they got to the second level, what was it again? Energy and skill to hunt. By the time they got to the third level, it was still energy and skill. But now, there are people that were into farming that did not evolve into the third level. So how many billionaire farmers do we have now? Very few. And those that are billionaire farmers are people that have added the third level to their second level. They are not just farming, but they are doing what is called mechanized farming. So they have tractors, And then all the things that come out of the farm, they have the third level. They are producing the meat, they are producing milk, so you cannot say, I just want to be agrarian. No, you have to now add the third level. So anyone today that is still into farming and is a billionaire and is extremely wealthy, they are not doing farming alone. They added the industrial age to connect with the agrarian age, and that's how they're able to excel. And that's why we still have a lot of people that are farming today, and they are the poorest set of people, because they are in what is called subsistence farming. They are still using hoe and cutlasses. They are not adding technology. They are not adding machines and adding all the derivatives of what the farm will produce. So energy, skill, then trade by barter. So I've just explained to you with the British pounds what a promissory note is. And that is very, very important for every one of us to note. So energy, skill, and then trade by barter. So at this point, they were not going after what was under the ground. They were not going after what was the ground. They are going after what was under the ground. But problems started again. And what was the problem? People now started having currencies. And then at a point in time, somewhere around I think 1971 or thereabout, what happened was the gold that everybody brought, people brought all their gold to collect the paper. The gold that had been brought, the gold were being stored. And people started trading since the 1930s, 1920s, 1930, 1933. That's when all this paper thing came in. So they started using paper. But because trust was backing it up, people started using paper. And they forgot that there is gold that is backing up the paper, because generation after generation, people were now using the paper to buy land. They were using the paper to buy a house. Banking was giving people checkbook, giving people different kind of stuff, and then everybody forgot there was gold. Then the people that control things, they now sat down. They said, you know what? Since this gold are just sitting down here, and everybody is used to this paper now, let us separate it. Let us just continue banking system, and let's just continue to issue notes and issue checks so that people can continue to trade with that based on trust. Let us now separate this gold so that the gold can begin to trade on its own, and those that want to buy can buy. So they shared the gold, and people bought the gold, and then the gold market was separated from the financial market. And that is how people stole the destiny of people. And then the financial market now is ordinary paper. There is nothing backing up all the paper all of us are carrying, and nothing is backing it up. That's why they call it fiat money. It's fake money. Just paper. Somebody can just... Have you not seen what Emefiele did? If you don't, even if you are too young to know, did you not see what central bank under Emefiele did in the last 1-2 years? Were you not a victim? That is how human beings sit down. They just come up. It's people that will sit down and just do one thing. 200 million people will be bonded because one man decided to put color on paper and do Baba Blue. And then they now blew the thing. They'll change color, do coloration. They said they change colors, and everybody, people died. People lost businesses. People's life was shattered by this. That's how they decided to remove gold. And all of you now, you want to die because of paper. Hello? So what began to happen was, money is universal, but currency is geographical. Money is universal, but currency is geographical. So people now started having paper. But you now realize that when you travel, so for instance now, if you are traveling from the US to Nigeria, and you have $10,000, $10,000 is just one bundle. One bundle. Just put it in your pocket. Pam, that's all. $10,000. But when you now get to Nigeria, that's 13 million or 14 million. So you bring your $10,000, you travel to Nigeria, you go to the bank or bureau de change, you change it, they will now give you 13 million or 13.5 million. And then you are now carrying big bag. And then load, security. So people began to say, no, this is not okay. We cannot continue like this. Because what you did is, you brought $10,000, you got 13.5. After you have finished spending money in Nigeria, when you are now going back and you want to go back to the same bank or the same bureau de change to change your money back, they will now tell you it's no more 1,350. For you to buy is this amount. For you to sell is this amount. And you see the problem there. And that's when people began to say, no, we need to have a change. It was that change that people clamored for that led to the 4th level of evolution. It was the change of, I cannot be work in the factory. Because people were working in the factory, they will work in companies, they will work in factory for 30 years, for 35 years, before they now retire, and then they will be looking for pension, and people were like, no, there must be a deeper level than this. It was that cry that led people into the next level of evolution. And the next level of evolution is what I will deal with when I come back next week, Sunday. Every year, bow in Jesus' name. I want you to open your mouth and begin to thank God.